Hey, welcome to Crossroads. In today's episode, we'll be talking about how woke investment firms are now being probed by Congress in antitrust investigations. And we'll also be going into a lot of stories I cannot talk to you about on YouTube because they will probably ban me for it, which we'll jump over to Epoch TV for those in a bit. First, though, let me show you this. The House of Representatives is investigating some of the leading firms behind the ESG agenda. We've been saying this is going to happen for a while now. It is now happening. Now, ESG is environmental and social governance. It's one of the main agendas forcing companies to follow standards in this, woke investment with leftist policies and so on. And these firms, these investment firms, are now being probed in possible antitrust violations. The House Judiciary Committee, led by Chairman Representative Jim Jordan, they just issued subpoenas to both the Vanguard Group and Arjuna Capital this Monday. These are some of the biggest firms behind that whole ESG agenda. Let me show you first a letter from the Judiciary Committee that was sent separately to the Vanguard Group and to Arjuna Capital. Both letters state that each company, it says this, quote, appears to have entered into collusive agreements to decarbonize its assets under management and reduce emissions to net zero in ways that may violate U.S. antitrust laws. Because we know that price setting, we know that companies coordinating in ways like this or working together to push weird agendas could violate antitrust laws. And notably, if they were all pushing ESG and using their investments to strong-arm businesses into following their demands, well, that could be an antitrust violation, which is, of course, what they're looking into. Here's some background from CNBC. It says this. Arjuna is part of Climate Action 100+. It's a coalition of about 700 global investors that represent more than $68 trillion in assets, according to the group. It says Arjuna also participated in the Net Zero Asset Managers Initiative. Vanguard was in the initiative but left in December 2022, but that didn't stop the Judiciary Committee from including it in its investigation. Now, you might remember, it was a while back actually, I was talking about how these investigations were likely going to start, and one of the targets of that would be members of the group Climate Action 100+. That there were groups of global investors that were seemingly very much concerned about this exact thing happening now taking place, which is, of course, violations that they were violating antitrust laws. Now, the issue with ESG, environmental social governance, is that it works by forcing companies to make decisions for the investors rather than consumers. It's the idea that can help with long-term investment returns. It only really works if they have a monopoly. They have to be able to force enough companies to do what they want so that people don't have any other options. Because what it does is essentially this. It's investors saying, we're not going to give you money unless you follow our agendas. And those agendas oftentimes go against actual sound business interest. They oftentimes go against what the public wants. They go against the value of products. They go against the basic principles of the free market. But because investment firms control the flow of capital, they can use this agenda as a way to strong-arm these companies into doing something that goes against, I think, basic, actual, under normal circumstances, what you would say is, let's say, business decisions that actually serve the interests of the investors in terms of making money. They can only make money then if they control enough of the industry. And when you're dealing with $68 trillion and working in cahoots with each other, that's when you have that. But of course, that working in cahoots part is also what would form a possible violation of antitrust laws. Now, Media Matters, on another note, is also under investigation for allegedly bullying investors into pulling their ads from X. You have a lot of issues like this where, interestingly, different cases, different companies, different focuses, but the tactics seem to be the same. That this woke agenda is being forced on corporations, forced on social media platforms, not through sound business practice, not through, let's say, the organic pressure from, people wanting to buy a product or not wanting to buy a product, but instead by groups working together in collaboration in order to use their power to destroy people they don't like. Let me show you what's happening with X right now and with Media Matters. This is according to the Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey on X. And he said in the post on X, quote, "Breaking, we have reason to believe Media Matters used fraud to solicit donations from Missourians in order to bully advertisers into pulling out of X." That's the platform formerly known as Twitter. And he calls it the last platform dedicated to free speech in America. "We have launched an investigation." Are you getting that? The Attorney General in Missouri has now launched an official investigation into Media Matters and whether Media Matters was essentially threatening businesses into pulling off of X. He writes that enemies of free speech are attempting to kill X because they cannot control it. And we are not going to let Missourians be subject to fraud in the process. "I'm fighting to ensure progressive tyrants masquerading as news outlets cannot manipulate the marketplace in order to wipe out free speech." Now, this investigation is going after one of the key tools of cancel culture. A lot of companies that do hit pieces and go after advertisers, this is the tactic they use. You'll see, for example, that when a lot of the big media companies want to do hit pieces on an individual, on a business, on a platform like X, what they do is this. They write their hit piece, they frame a false narrative, and then they message or call every single advertiser on that business or on that platform, and they say, "Why are you associating a brand with this?" In other words, they use fake narratives and fake claims as the vehicle to go to these advertisers and then suggest that if the advertisers do not pull their ads off of that platform or out of that business, that they will lump them all together and that company will get labeled with whatever they're concocting. In this case, the big criticism against X is that, it's anti-Semitic, ironically, while you have like Harvard and a lot of big universities and a lot of big businesses and key people on the left getting accused of the same thing right now, anti-Semitism, because of their open support for Hamas. But back to the point of how this system works, it's an ecosystem that advances an agenda. ESG on the investment side, individual companies going after their competitors, and using this power of journalists, of politicians, of activist organizations as tools to pressure and destroy anybody who dares stand against their interests. In the case of X or Elon Musk, that interest, of course, is that, Elon Musk is standing up for free speech. But Elon is not backing down. Interestingly, he just brought back Alex Jones of InfoWars, and that was after Tucker Carlson interviewed Jones, and that was after Musk had a private poll on X on whether he should bring Alex Jones back. Let me show you this. This is X, Human Events. It says, exclusive, Elon Musk just confirmed to Human Events' Jack Posobiec that he would be willing to go to jail rather than illegally censor users on X on behalf of the federal government. Let me play you exactly what Elon Musk said.
We will be as transparent as possible with that, and frankly, if I think a government agency is breaking the law in their demands on the platform, I would be prepared to go to prison personally if I think they are the ones breaking the law.
All right, now for the next part of this episode, I'll be going into topics I cannot talk about on YouTube because they'll probably give me a strike for it. We'll be going into some major updates on the whole J6 narrative and how the January 6th committee may have committed the same crime they're accusing the J6ers of, and what that means, of course, for the future of that narrative and those investigations. A lot of that could get thrown out. It's a very big update. We'll also be detailing how the recent 2023 United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP28, is facing global ridicule right now, and there's some pretty funny stuff with that. But of course, for all this, we'll be digging into narratives which go against the prevailing narratives, meaning YouTube will probably censor us for saying it. So for the rest of this episode and more, and the live Q&A, come join me on Epoch TV. So folks, that's it for YouTube, Facebook, and X for the rest of the episode, including the Q&A. Where you can come ask me questions, of course. Come join us on Epoch TV. I'll see you there.